I want to welcome you to another episode of Money Behind the Deal. And this week, I actually had the opportunity to be interviewed by a good friend, Gordon Burdecki. And in this, we give a little bit insight on a situation that we were into where it's all about protecting your money. And unfortunately, we were scammed out of a lot of money. And we tell the story. So I want to make sure that you guys get to hear it. Thank you again for listening.
I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of Unleash Your to Be You, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Body. And I'm here today with Michael Gabriel. I met Michael Gabriel back in the day. We were part of a mastermind, and I don't even know how many years ago it was at this point. I'm thinking like 6 years ago, maybe 5 years, maybe six. I think it was like six. Am I right, Michael?
Can you believe it's been even that long, right? It feels like just yesterday I met you. It doesn't feel like it hasn't been that long.
It hasn't been that long. I mean, it's been long at the same time, right? Like we went through so much together. We also had this story. I want to mention this story in this podcast. I know this is a secret. This is a secret, guys. This is like this story we haven't really put out there. We haven't talked about it. It's a little bit of like, I don't usually go this route, but this story is like, my God, how can this happen to you? Why we're going to mention this story is not because we just want to like sit on this episode and this podcast and gossip, but it's like, we don't want this happening to you either, right? Out there, something like this. But Michael, tell us a little about yourself. Like, let's go there first before we talk about that story.
Yeah, I think, and I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but my journey started back when I was 20 years old. I was at Cal State, LA, and my friend calls me up and he said, "You want to play poker online?" Now, it's not the friend that we know, but it's another friend. And I don't like to gamble. Right. I didn't have money to gamble. I was a broke college student. And I told him, I said, "Look, man, I have no idea about poker. I have no money to lose." He said, "Listen, just go borrow $100 and me and you will make some money tonight." So I sit there and I'm talking to him and, he's telling me how to play and we're playing online. And that's the biggest thing, right? Right. At that time, like we're talking 15, 20 years ago, right? Well, way longer than that, 25 years ago. And we're playing cards and I win $500 in that night. And for a broke college student, $500 in one night felt like 10,000. And this piece of my life, I don't really share too often. And I'll tell you a little bit why. But when I saw that I made that money that fast, the next day I went to Barnes & Noble and I bought every book off the shelf that had to do with poker. And for the next 7 to 8 years, I played poker for a living. And while I'm doing this, I'm making money, right? I'm doing fairly well for myself. But of course, it's not a lifestyle that is glorified. My parents thought I had a gambling problem. And they made me feel bad about it. And as I look back at that story or that part of my life, I realized how it has affected me up until now. But when I was there, I remember my daughter at 5 years old, she was in school and she comes to me and she said, Daddy, they asked at kindergarten, what my dad, what our parents do for a living. And I told them you played poker. And she was so proud of me. And I felt ashamed, right? Because whatever dirt that feels like that feels like you're a gambling addict. But at the end of the day, it was like some skill that I learned. I felt dirty. And I remember at the poker table, I met so many different people. I met police officers, judges, drug dealers, businessmen, and there was an opportunity for me to get out of it. I won a lot of money at a tournament and this guy comes up to me, he says, "What are you doing with your life? Do you want to own restaurants?" And I saw that as my first opportunity to get out and start my life as an entrepreneur. So that day when he asked me, I literally stopped playing poker cold turkey, which made me believe that, okay, I didn't have a gambling problem because there was a piece of me that felt like, damn, maybe my parents are right. Am I addicted to gambling? But I realized at that moment that I wasn't addicted. Now, from that piece as a restaurant owner, how I got into marketing is I knew nothing about leadership. I knew nothing about restaurants. I knew nothing about owning a business, but I knew that I bought into this business of owning a restaurant and I had to stake my place of like, hey, I belong here. So the gentleman that I partnered with, he owned like 13 restaurants. They're called paninis and stuff like that. I don't even remember back then. And we opened up what they call Chop It Salad. And it was a salad bar / like Chipotle style where you picked your ingredients and we chopped it up and we put it inside of a wrapper. And what I did was I took care of, because I love graphics. So I made the logo, I made the menu boards, I made the to-go menu, the business cards. And that's when I really fell in love with what I thought was marketing. I was creating all this stuff. I designed it. Now, the relationship of me and that partner went kind of astray. I met him, and I never talk about this neither. I met him at a poker table, and maybe he had a gambling problem. But one day I went to go use the credit card and there was no money in the account. So I went to the bank. Oh, it was horrible. So I went to the bank and I saw all these withdrawals of cash, and I confronted him. And, it was this whole like spin around, like, it was whatever was going on like at the moment, but I knew it had something to do with gambling or whatever. But I had an opportunity to sell, and we had two restaurants going. We were operating on our third restaurant, and there was a guy who wanted a piece of it. And I found that it was my way out. So in that transition, I fell in love with marketing. So I went back to school and I went and I did my school for marketing. I got my degree, my undergraduate degree. I went to college in Chicago to get my master's in video because that's like the newest thing. But what I found while I was doing that, I had clients like here and there, and I knew how to build websites. I knew how to do marketing materials and all this cool design stuff, Photoshop, all that stuff. But what I realized is that people didn't want just a cool website. At the end of the day, they wanted results. And I stole this phrase from my friend. And at this point, it's been years, so I'm going to coin it as my own. But he said, design without results is just art. And it was so true because no matter how pretty I made something, how professional I made it, how cool I made it, at the end of the day, if it didn't produce some type of result, whether that was a sale or a lead or whatever it was, again, it's just something pretty that I made. So I took a deep dive into like the psychology of marketing, and I went to ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson and funnels this, funnel that. And again, it was still that lingering mind of just because you build it, it doesn't mean they're going to come. And if it doesn't produce results, it's just design. And I fell in love with Google Ads because Google Ads produced a result quickly. And with that being said, that took me on that journey of running a marketing agency. I've been doing that for about 8 years now. Anything from Google Ads to Facebook to any type of social media. And it still rings true today. Design without results is just art, because some people, they just, they don't understand that piece of it, even though I have a pretty website. But if it doesn't move someone, then, it doesn't work. So funny enough, another colleague of mine would sometimes say is like, man, I can get away with writing just a sentence on a page rather than this big elaborate design. And sometimes just a sentence alone can get more results than something that's super design heavy. So that was my quick version of the marketing aspect of things.
You know what I find interesting about that story you just told about the design, like art without designing art, like without any results is just like art, right? So true. I have a buddy of mine, love the guy to death, and I just had this conversation with him the other day. Everybody's using ChatGPT for everything. You see the copy; it's the same script, emojis, hyphens, everything. And he's designed this whole program, and it's beautiful. He's very very detail oriented. And he hands it to me, and he's like, "Oh, I want to post this on." He said, "I was like, what do you want me to post on Facebook so we can generate some stuff, some leads for whatever we're looking for?" And he goes, "Do this," and I go, "Excuse my language." I said, "Like, nobody's gonna read this shit. It's too long."
Yeah.
And like he's like, "Wait," and I said like this. I shorted it up and then I put whatever he put in the comments. But the whole idea behind it is like you're right. Like one sentence is like too much going on. People just gonna push people away and being inauthentic. I feel like the art of things, like you talked about art, designing things, has been watered down. And like, I use ChatGPT, you use it, or whatever, use Grok or whatever AI. We all use it, but yet using it without your own artistic integrity involved, without still putting the work in, is just going to come out like regurgitated AI slop, right? I feel like you're seeing a lot of that now. What's cool about you is that I noticed that with you, you don't do that. And another thing you do well, forget about the things we don't do well, is that you took my business. Everybody out there who's listening, Michael's taken my business, and I've been working with him. I think it's probably a lot longer than 6 years, like 10 years, I think, at this point. And we started off on our journey together. Was you helped me build out my garage fitness. You're actually the person who gave me the logo that I had today. If you guys ever look up my business, garagefitnesstrainer.com, you can always look it up and you'll see the logo that he gave me. I drew my original logo, and now it's the logo that you gave me still to this day. I fell in love with this, and I've been doing this for the last like 5 years, I think. Actually, that's how I hadn't done it any longer. It's true. And you took a Google ads and people call me from Google ads. I get messages on my phone and we keep fine tuning it. That's one thing I love about you. And want to turn it back to you, but you always, you're such a good marketer because you're also a friend. Like you became a friend and you did that through just, hey, you need anything. Hey, you answer my phone calls, you answer my messages, you always get back to me, which is amazing. And throughout that whole process, I mean, we've grown and now my business has grown, doing exceptionally well, exceptionally well. And I'll tell you, and other things sprung off from it, like podcast and then I started speaking and you're part of that journey. And I want to tell anybody out there, when you're looking for somebody who's a marketer, you're looking for somebody who not only just throws paper, pen to paper and images and gets you, but somebody who really cares. And that's what you do really well.
Well, I appreciate that. Of course, my journey isn't over, right? And I feel like I continue to grow. And what I found, like I was helping this other like loan officer do mortgages and get him leads. And there's this correlation that actually hit me probably about a year ago. And so I was helping this guy and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, there's another marketer. He's hit me up. He's trying to, do this thing with me. Would you sit in the meeting and we could talk to him and see if he does something different than what you do?" And I said, "Yeah." And he knew who I was. And from that conversation, the other marketer pulled me to the side and said, "Look, you're great at lead generation. You're doing the right things." And he said, "Do you know that these leads that you're creating for these mortgage people, they're worth like, $3,000 to $7,000 a piece." And he said, "All you had to do is run leads for yourself and you can have someone else close these loans." So that was attracted to me because at the end of the day, I feel like my retirement is going to be real estate, right? I want to own real estate. I want, the residual income coming in and I can retire from that. So I was very interested to understand funding the part of it. So I got into mortgages a little bit. I've been doing like private money stuff and investment and stuff. And one day I had to like sit back and ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Why'd you just take on this whole new career? Like you're doing great as a marketer. And the intersection that it came to from just going off of what you're saying is when I help someone with their business and marketing, I help them grow like their vision, their empire, whatever it is. And then I've been helping people on the loan side help, build their portfolio, their legacy, their retirement, the thing that I want to. And the intersection of why I'm doing it, I think I just love to serve. I just love to help people, right? So no matter what it is, right? Usually, I'm helping you with your business or I'm helping someone get a property. It's at the end of the day, I just love to serve. And there was a guy who I talked to about 3 or 4 years ago that kind of way smarter than me, that kind of changed my life. And he just told me this one thing, and you may have heard it before, and I don't think he's the originator of it, but he asked me a question. He said, "Hey, Michael, if there's three types of people in the world, there's people who give, people who take, and people who like," he called it a matcher. And he said, the matcher is the person who will only do something for you if you do something for them. And he asked me that question. And he goes, out of the giver, the taker, and the matcher, he goes, who do you think is the most successful and who do you think is the least successful? So have you heard this, Gordon? Who do you think?
No, no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm thinking
All right.
like, yeah,
This thing changed my life. But let me ask you, right? Out of the, a giver gives, right? A taker, they take, and a matcher, they, do something if they give done something for them. Who do you think is the most successful and who do you think is the least successful?
the least successful is the taker. And that is probably kind of a tricky question for me because I think if you keep giving and you're like giving to the wrong person, what ends up happening is like they end up taking from you and you don't make, there's nothing that comes about it. So I think it's a mixture of just giving, like, I know that transactional, I get that things are transactional. I think everybody's looking for something from somebody. So that's a hard question to answer. So what did this guy say?
Of course, it's a trick question, right? That's what it comes down to. It's a trick question. So he said it's about how that person aligns with the other person, right? So he said the most successful person is a giver when they connect with another giver.
Yeah, there you go.
Two givers come together, they're giving to each other, right? They're giving to each other. And it's like this explosion happens of, if you want to call it success or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, it's this constant, iron sharpens iron type thing, and people are growing and they're getting a lot of value out of it. And then he said the least successful is also the giver, because if they ever connect with a taker, then all they're doing in the relationship is giving, 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 even though they don't expect anything back, but they are not getting anything back for them to grow.
Right.
Yeah. And then he said, of course, if a giver connects with a matcher, it can work, but it feels kind of dirty, right? It feels kind of
Transactional,
like,
right?
yeah, it feels like, all right, I'm going to do this for you.
Yeah, put the money on the coffee table and you leave.
Yeah, there is someone that we both know that I feel like is totally a matcher. And like I try to, at the end of the day, it's like you have to protect your relationships. So when he told me that story, like I did this whole audit of like, all right, who's the givers in my life and who's the takers, who's the matchers. And I try to just, as I understand that, try to align with more of the givers so that we can give to each other and be careful of the takers and the matchers. And knowing that alone has like dramatically changed my life in a way of like, now I know who I need to focus and build better relationships with rather than allow people to take advantage. And
Right. And the thing about that is like, there's nothing wrong with getting with like somebody who is transactional, but the thing is like, know who you're dealing with and learn. That's one thing I've done and did a deep dive on, was really analyzing human beings and human behavior. And sometimes the wolves pulled over my eyes and pulled over your eyes. And sometimes that's for many reasons.
yeah,
And we'll talk about that. I told you we were talking about story, guys. So be
yeah.
prepared. If you're staying to the end, you're going to get it.
This is a good transition to it. The givers, the takers, and the matchers.
Yeah, right, right. I think when you're dealing with people, you got to know who you're dealing with, and that's what I did a deep dive on. Anybody out there, like learn human behavior, learn what to look for. One thing I don't do is gatekeep my information, so I'll tell you exactly what I do when I look for somebody. When you're looking at somebody here, I'll tell you a little tip that you can do when you're trying to figure out somebody. Is whatever they're projecting is usually the biggest insecurity.
Mm,
Whatever they say they want to be, it's the biggest insecurity. Somebody who's the flashy guy or loud in the room is usually, that's their insecurity. They need to be heard. They need to be seen. We all do it. I do it myself, even. No one's special in this room and on this podcast, listening to this podcast in that way. You're special because you're unique to yourself, but you're not special in a way with humans. Humans all have things they do, right? And that's one of the biggest things. If you can learn that, how somebody overly gives or something from their childhood, right? Overly gives. The person who says, I give so much, but nobody ever gives me anything back. Well, that's a childhood wound. You're a people pleaser, right?
mm.
Right? You're a people pleaser. You're not getting anything back. So then you have to look deeper. Why am I doing that? So these things are, even though you can recognize in others, you also should recognize in yourself. And what are you doing in your life that could be holding you back to be the best version of yourself, right? Your greatest version, unstoppable. So I always look at myself. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And I do this like audit on myself and with other people. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. Whenever you recognize in them, this who they are. And then you know who you're dealing with. So let's go into the story now. So I want to dive into this a little bit. Let's talk about. I'm going to let you lead this one off, man. This is generated. Go ahead.
So the reason why this happened to me is because I had a friend of 20 years who come to me, and we've worked on projects together. He's worked for me. We've done things together, and, he's very intelligent, this person we're speaking about. And I believe he's a great salesman. And I think that's why he does well at what he does. But he was creating a software that is great for someone who needs to, let's say, blast out to the world a message, because that's what we all want to do. We all want exposure. So it was what he created allowed a software to kind of like mass call, mass text, almost like a speed dialer type situation. And, he comes to me first and he says, "Hey, Mike, I got these government contracts. And within these contracts, we have to provide proof of funds before they before they give it to you." So which I knew this, right? I know government contracts. I haven't done any myself, but I used to work for a company. I was their marketing director, and they would do government contracts. And what happens is you put up the bill first, you do the work, and then the government pays you back. And it's supposed to be like guaranteed money because it's the government, right? So this gentleman comes to me, says, "I got these government contracts for telecommunications. And, I have to blast out hundreds of thousands of messages." I think the one contract he talked about was maybe it was about voting or something, which made sense, right? We're coming up to an election. We want to make sure everyone's registered to vote. So they have thousands, hundreds of thousands of people need this, message to go out, which, yeah, you need the message. That's why I got it. So he's like, the first contract I need, I think it was $1,000. So I give him 1,000. He says, I'm going to pay you back 15% in 30 days. This is great. I would love that return. I mean, I get my money back. So it was $150. So it's like, all right, no big deal. The next contract. Oh, the next contract is 2,500 and I'll get it back to you in 30 days. I said, okay, let's do it. So I ran that play a couple times, right? So we did, the first month was 1,000 or 1,500. We go into the second month, we're doing 2,500, doing another 2,500. I get up to doing like 5 or 6,000 at a time, and I'm getting paid back. Everything is great, and we're probably 10 months, 11 months in. And there was times where like it lapsed, it got a little bit late, and he's like, "Oh, it's coming. We just gotta wait." So I think the latest he was, the most maybe 60 going into 3 months. But every time I got paid back. And then he comes to me like every scam artist does and says, I got a big one. I got this big score. Do you know anybody who wants in? And it's funny because what I recognized out of this, looking back at it, is the power of influence, right? So I go to a couple friends of mine and I say, hey, we got this score. I've been doing it for almost a year. I've been getting my money back every time, which I was getting my money back every time. And I think before I brought everyone on, I did one $20,000 one by myself. So I did a $20,000 one, got my money back, and then he's like, "Oh, we got this huge one." So it made me believe that, man, everyone can make money. So I come to a couple friends and they trust me. They trust this guy, right? They don't know this other guy. They trust me. And I'm telling them it worked. Like, it's government contracts. We're getting paid, da, 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 da. And what happens is we get, one guy to give us 10,000, another guy to give us 30,000. I think I was in for 40 at that point. I had another girl who I think she gave me 5. And so we're in. So it feels like almost 100 grand in. And, we're going to get paid in 30 days. And there's only one smart person in the group that was like, well, I need a contract. I need you to sign something. Where to me, this guy's been with me for 20 years. Like, we're good. Like, I trust him. And looking back at it, I should have had a contract. But as you can tell where the story is going, the first 30 days comes and he's late. He's been late before. He's paid. I'm telling everyone, like, he's been late before. It's no big deal. This is a big one. I can understand why it's going to be a little bit late. We go 45 days late. I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? Well, something's going on with the lady. She made a mistake. She said that it was fraud. So I have to go do this fraud dispute. That was the first thing, right? If you recall. And I was like, interesting. Now we're going into 60 days. And I'm like, all right, 2 weeks. And now I'm like, who's your bank? Right. I want to know who called this fraud? Who's the bank? Who owns the contract? Now I'm starting to ask all these questions because I realized that if it was only my money on the line, maybe I would have not have been so aggressive. But there's other people's money involved now. And I'm embarrassed, if anything. That's what it started happening as I'm getting to the bottom. So I called this bank and I said, look, you guys have a fraud dispute. What's going on? This is not fraud. We got money tied up. I try to get a hold of whoever owned the contract, but go to show. And then we go into 90 days and then we're 120 days. And now this guy's telling us he's going to get the money back. I got caught up in this thing. There was a mistake. They got my money held up. Now it's over here. It's over there. Just all these things started happening. And what I realized, I started to feel that the money that we gave him wasn't being used appropriately or for what he said it was. Maybe a portion of it went to this contract, but he hasn't gotten paid back and he has no money. So now we're, we'll say 6 months to almost a year in, around 9 months. And now I'm like, all right, who do I got to get involved? I'm calling the police. I'm calling the FBI, the IRS, the FTC, the Better Business Bureau, anybody with letters. I'm calling everybody I can because I'm so pissed now because this guy is playing us and I want to get to the bottom of it. And if anything, I wanted to let people be aware of this situation so that it doesn't happen to anybody else because it happened to me.
Yeah, real quickly, I want to interject. I was the other person. You're allowed to mention that. I invested the 30 grand myself And at the time, I was really getting into investing with different people. So the money that like, and this is a cool little thing I would tell anybody out there: when you get into the investing world, cross your T's, dot your I's. You got to make sure that your paperwork is on point. The paperwork that I got from this guy was just BS, and it didn't cover nothing. I have a good friend who does this for a living and who's taught me so much. And even to this day, I don't know, I have like a pimple on an elephant's ass what this guy knows about investing. But at the time, I was even more brand new. I knew enough to get a contract, but it was still like, what do you call it? There's no assets tied to it, like an asset's anything that like I can get from him. He had no assets. He lived behind a Chinese food store. He found out prior to this. All the red flags were there. When I talked to him on a Zoom call, all of us were on a Zoom call with this guy. And I could tell, I said, what's the difference between this and a Ponzi scheme? And right away, my hairs went off, and and even being on the Zoom call with other people, I knew it because he's like, "What's a Ponzi? What's a Ponzi scheme?" And when he did that, I was like, "Hmm." But this is that part of my human nature. I did not being a people pleaser, right? I didn't want to back out the deal, and also the greed, right? You see dollar signs, 15% on 30 days. I had conversation. By the way, I had long conversations with the guy, and it was like he uses spirituality and all this other stuff. And I should have known. My red flags were there. That it's not about feelings. It's really about the paperwork is done right. Everybody's protected. You're protected. They're protected. And since I learned that, you want to get anybody who's investing. This is the thing I would tell. This is why I want to tell the story. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. If you know you're going to put money out there that you're going to like, hey, you might lose it, but protect yourself as much as you can, and don't ever invest money you can't lose. Because if you invest money you can't lose, I mean, what the one guy lost his house, right? He had to move. He's got married, and he was involved with us. So it was really, really hard for a lot of people. I had to close down a policy because of it, because I couldn't pay back my policy. So I had to surrender it. I mean, that was like a 100,000 I mean, I knew that was a possibility that I might have to do that someday anyway, but it definitely just fast forwarded it. All these things happened, and it taught me a lesson. I mean, there's lessons to learn in every one of these things, by the way, Michael. The lesson is like, just don't jump in and allow your greed to take over, and don't be a people pleaser, and be careful who you trust. Even somebody you think's your friend.
Ain't that the truth? And I think that's what I had my guard down, is because I knew him for so long. But definitely, you said it you hit the nail on the head. You have to protect yourself. And even though you think people have the best intentions, and they might have the best intentions, shit can go wrong. And when it goes wrong, if you're protected, then at least you have that, you know?
It's like a marriage, right? People jump into relationships and they're like, I love this person. Who wasn't this I saw recently? It was an influencer, this bodybuilder guy, and he's like, he totally gets with this girl. They said that all his friends told him to sign a prenup, right? I'm trying to remember his name, but I can't remember it. It will come to me later on. But that's besides the fact. Big influencer, had this girlfriend, married her, told him to, all of a sudden she left him and took his money. Right? Told him to sign a prenup. I'm not saying that everybody wants to that's a controversial topic, but it's all about protecting yourself. And it's for both parties, right? If you have skin in the game, both of you should have skin in the game. I think that's just fair, right? I know it's like this should be transactional, right? Nothing like when it comes to that like love, it shouldn't be transactional. But that's people change their minds. People change their minds. And even friendships. I mean, how many times you had a friend you thought was going to be a friend forever, and then all of a sudden turns around to be a total prick, right? That's what happened to us in that way. And how quickly did he shut down and shut off? Remember that? Like, he turned into such a prick. We all got him on a Zoom call. You and two other guys, and we're sitting there talking to him, and the guy's telling him he's going to lose the house, and he starts laughing. That's how narcissistic, psychotic behavior. It's like a sociopath, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to diagnose him with any label, but that's just, to me, is like, wow, he just showed us whatever it is. He just showed that he is not a good man. He's not a good human being. He literally was like smiling, and he was neurotic. So there were signs that I ignored, and I want to go back to some of the signs that I seen. One of them was I'll teach a little thing I learned in behavioral analyzing somebody, is that when you get on a conversation with somebody and the conversation feels really good, and when you get off, it feels like, what was that about? It leaves you a little empty inside. But every time you get on a call with them, you feel amazing. Like, gives you a shot of dopamine. Like they're telling you about 15% this and 20% this. We're gonna go to the sky. And then you get off, you're like, something don't feel right. Well, that gut feeling, I know it to me, looking back on it, I should have listened to. Because sometimes when it's too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. And I've seen it happen more than one occasion that somebody scammed people. And now seeing it's like a Jordan Belfort, right? From Wolf of Wall Street. That guy was, he didn't have to scam people. And there's another guy out there who's doing it right now that I know actively that's took millions of dollars from people, right? Millions of dollar people. And then if the friend that was trying to help me get on board, I was told not to do the deal. And I didn't, thank God, because now everybody is losing millions of dollars that invested, hundreds of thousands, people losing houses, people losing this. It's happening actively, right? So what anybody out there who's like wants to invest, but just be really, really careful who you're invested in and really analyze the look at the person. If you have any doubts, like get out and don't do something you're not comfortable with. Everybody has a different comfort zone. And like I said, don't lose your pants on your shirt over this kind of stuff, right? But back to this story. Like right now, you and I went through this whole system, right? Where you called the police. Now it's 90 days. This guy ain't paying us back. This guy is like not paying us back. We are not getting our money back.
No.
Sometimes that there's an ending to the story that you're not that you don't like the princess doesn't rise and you don't ride off into the sunset with win. So we lost this one round, right? But we gained a lot of other things from it, knowledge.
Yeah. And it's crazy because as we started uncovering other things, we found out there was more people involved and another person gave 70,000. And to this day, right? And
What did he say that what was the one guy he invested like 100, but he said he was doing something for him. It was like a casino owner or something like that.
yeah, there was so much stuff being told. Like, I have no idea. I don't know what's real and what's not. Right. That's what it feels like, and a piece of me, like and I'm not sure if this ever crossed your mind, but it crossed my mind. Right. Cause I started bringing you in and these other guys. I'm thinking to myself, these people may think I'm the one that's involved and I took their money. And I'm like, the scam artist too, because they trusted me. And that was hard to accept and I wanted to be defensive sometimes, but it's like at the same time, I knew that I didn't do it, but it was just so hard to believe that I convinced people to be a part of this and we all got played together. And it was tough. So there's the other person that was involved gave 70,000 in cash. I mean, I've talked to him 2 weeks ago and he still believes he's going to get some type of money out of this. And he's like, yeah, exactly. Because I have not stopped applying pressure as much as I could, right? And it felt hopeless at some point because everybody I talked to, from the attorney general to the Better Business Bureau, whoever it was I called, they all told me, well, this is a civil suit. We can't do nothing. You got to go, sue them in court. And then if you uncover something illegal, then something could come up. I talked to different lawyers and the lawyers are like, unfortunately, you're using good money to chase bad money. And the good money is you're going to have to pay us a fee to go after this guy, but he doesn't have anything anyways, because that's what he does. He's a scammer. So like it was a hard pill to swallow, saying that almost like I have to give up and like there's nothing I could do. I've tried everything. And then we get a phone call. And this phone call happened.
Wait, how many years has it been now? It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years.
I went to the Better Business Bureau myself. It's been 2 years. I didn't care at this point anymore. I was like, I had better fish to fry. I realized that like thinking positive and not focusing on that was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
All right. So almost 3 years now go by and I still pester him like with text messages like, I'm going to get you. This is not over. Like I am totally like the battered woman, like upset, like this guy, hope karma's coming for you, right? So I have contacted him or been in contact with him, and you get a phone call.
I get a phone call, yes.
And you get a phone call first, which is still blows my mind because I'm the one calling everybody, leaving my number, Better Business Bureau, FTC, FBI. Like, I'm like, how did they get your number? But I'm happy they got your number at the same time. So
attorney, yes.
Yeah.
Some attorney. I'm not going to disclose that information. I'm not going to get to the names. I don't want to do that. Because I don't know where the case is at right now. I don't want to ruin it. But I will say this, that they called me up and asked me a lot of information. Right? And this I can speak freely about. I assumed, I even said to the attorney, and he didn't want to tell me because he had to use his words carefully. I'm like, I feel like he gambled this money. And I said, sport. And I said a couple times, I said, and I went back to it. I said, I'm not saying this is it, but I think maybe something to do with sports betting. I think, and he goes, I think you're onto something. And that's all he said. He didn't say much more than that. That was it. But of course, I gave him your name to call, and it was funny because he thought like he was asking me about you, like you might have been involved, right? And I was like, no, 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 this guy's awesome. He would never do that.
Oh,
This guy gives a shirt off his back. I've known him for years. I still work with him. He's still my marketer. So yeah, and I'm wondering if it's because of the contract I had written up with the Better Business Bureau. I sent it to them. I wonder if that had
mm,
anything to do with it.
yeah, because you
I'm
were the
thinking like,
only
why would they?
smart one. I mean,
I
even
don't
though
know,
the
but
contract was shit,
yeah, even though the contract was shit, it was still a contract, right? It was
eh,
something.
you had something. Everyone else just is like, hey, we just zelled this
I
guy a
yeah.
bunch of money.
Yeah, but it just give them money. It's like, and like when I went to the bank, they always ask me. Even my banker, I love the guy Ryan Caputo from Penn Community and Salem. Anybody, that's a good banker, amazing banker. So this guy, he's even told me, he's like, "You sure about this one?" And I was like, I've done it, he's like, "You sure about this one?" And there was a couple of ones. There was another one. The bank stopped it. It was thank God they did because it wasn't a bad one, but it was like I wasn't sure about it. Like you always should be protected. Like the bank will tell you, like you sure about this when you're signing or when you're wiring money. So you got to be really, really, really careful about that when you're doing that. But yeah, they contacted me, and then I gave them your information, right? Because at this point, like this guy, they're after him. That story's still unfolding, by the way. We
Listen,
don't even know.
went off. This guy called me and I went, listen, I told him, I said, I've been waiting for your call for 2 years. I appreciate it. I said, I got lists. Cause I had, what I've been doing is I created a document and anytime I figured out some information, I kept notes like, oh, he said it was this investor. And then I found this other investor. And then I found this other guy who has money. We think that he used money to buy a house, right? So I had that in there. I had letter of intent, like I did all these reports, right? So I did a report with FTC and the FBI and I had report number, this number. Like, so I had all these things out and I told him, I said, I've been waiting for this and I'm going to give you everything I absolutely have because how he did us was so dirty and I was so upset and I sung like a bird.
But you know what? People like talk about this isn't like you're ratting on anybody, right? It wasn't under good intention. And don't be like, people are out there, they're like, you're not ratting on anybody. Stop, like, don't be a people pleaser. There's a part of me that thought about this, like, oh, should I just let this roll off? But sometimes you got to be the guy, right? That says, like, like, you got to be the guy who stands in the front line. Like, I don't know, but if this guy's acting up, I'm going to punch him in the face. I'm not saying literally, but like, sometimes they run into the wrong person and he ran into the wrong people. So not everybody's just going to let him go. Like not everybody should be just letting people go in life. That doesn't mean that's not becoming the best version of yourself. That's not part of it, right? Part of it is not letting people walk all over you either. So the karma can come from you too. It's okay. It's okay to sting like a bird, man. Right? This guy did.
I didn't feel like a snitch. It didn't feel like I was snitching on someone. And I feel this is what my definition of a snitch like situation would be is me and you do a crime and then I'm the one telling on you. But right
Right.
now, a crime has been done to us. And
Right.
right, like we did not do this crime together. And I am, and like I would, if it was me, I would serve whatever I had to do. I would take it like a man. But I felt like, man, just the manipulation that was happening, it just went too far. And it wasn't fair to you. It wasn't fair to the other people who put money in that whatever he did with his money, like Jordan Belfort of Wolf of Wall Street, that guy was talented. And I believe this guy, whoever this guy is talented, but he just focused on the wrong thing. Whatever he did wasn't the right thing to do. And unfortunately, I think finally, at this point, we can put our hands up and be like, hey, we did everything we could. It is over and done with. We're not getting our money back. It's fine. The lessons we learned out of this, because I was also concerned that I would lose some relationships out of it, like lose my relationship with you, lose my relationship with my other friends that I brought in, and all because of this guy who made a bad decision. So at the end of the day, you do have to protect yourself and you have to be smart. And it takes me almost to like partnerships, like in business. I have not gotten into a business partnership in a long time. And it started back when I owned restaurants, right? Like that guy was taking money. And then like unfortunately, sometimes you don't know who people are, even if you know them for a long time. And, this guy, he surprised me again, like out of that. And I just felt like I was taken dumb, and I feel like I'm smarter than that. But it's okay. I learned my lesson. I think, if you think of karma, it can go both ways, right? Karma could be good, karma could be bad. And, I was telling my friend this morning, he called me and he said, Michael, I have something to talk to you about. And PTSD, Michael, from 20 years ago, when my girlfriend would say that to me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm caught. I got caught talking to another chick. Like I go into this thing, and like, but in that moment when he said that to me, I was like, oh no, I hope everything's okay. But at the same time, I thought to myself, a man who has integrity walks with his head high. And I told him that after he told me what was going on with his situation. I said, Donnie, man, I got a little nervous there for a second. It took me back in the day when the girls would tell me that. I said, but truthfully, like in that moment, I knew like I'm not doing nothing wrong. Like we're good. Like I've never done anything wrong to him, or I'm not doing nothing wrong now. And when I think about our situation and that gentleman of what he's in, if he gets a phone call like that, like there's 1,000 things that probably run through his head of like what he has done wrong, and he's like, who's got me now? So yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say about this whole situation, I talk about learning. What did I learn? I learned to protect my money. Everybody should protect themselves. I learned how to understand that sometimes people that you think are your friends might not be your friends. I also learned that it doesn't take away from the friendships I have, and not to trust people. Still go in with open arms, look for the signs, but go with open arms. Give them, if they give you a reason, wait, just don't look for a reason. Don't be looking for bad things either. That's not good either, right? But look for bad things. That's a weird thing to say, right? Out loud. What happened since then? Since those 2 years, I grew my business exponentially because I refocused on that. I got out of a relationship and went to another relationships, and maybe like everything there is like whatever. Now I'm in where I'm at now, and I feel really good about myself. I feel good about me and my daughter established a good relationship, a better relationship in the last since like in the last 3 years since she moved back in. There's a lot of positives that happen when you focus on other things other than that said thing that happened to us. I guess as a part of our journey, but that doesn't define. I'm not going to sit there and be like teen it the whole time, and neither should you, right? You gotta let that monkey off your back. And anybody out there who's been through something like this, like I tell you, man, just handle it and then move through it. It's just weather the storm and then keep focusing on positive things. And like my business now at this point, like got it from there. I like 3x my business and my investments. So doesn't mean to stop doing it.
Yeah. Well, again, I think like if we talk about karma not being bad, but on the good side of things, like we did everything we were supposed to do. We did the right things. And I think out of that, we've been, I would say the word blessed, because I feel the same way. I feel like there was a hiccup in my journey. It felt overwhelming because I felt like I had no power over it, and I couldn't help. I couldn't fix it. And so it did weigh me down a little bit. But the minute I kind of released it from me, you're right. Exponentially started growing. And it was like, wow. Like, so it was, bless is definitely the word I would use. And, seems like you're very well off now too, right? We've learned a lot from it, and we've walked with integrity. We're doing the right things. And I feel like that's what the path is. Like, it's only now to success and greatness.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Michael, I know this was a totally different episode of podcast that I've ever done, right? And I just wanted to put this out there. And this podcast is called Elite Shelter You to Change Your Mindset, Change Your Body. And throughout this whole process, like your mindset is also part of like letting go and not sitting with it the whole time either. But it's also it's actually like the story's insane. It's still the same story, right? And it's a story to be told, and a story that a lot of people can learn about it. Michael, we're coming to the end of the hour, and I just want to just highlight you really quickly. Just tell people, like, leave them with one thing that something positive, and that they can leave them with that can help them change their lives. I think we left them with a lot of stuff already, but something that you can give them real quick.
Well, I think I'm gonna reiterate the givers, takers, and the matchers, because that has changed my life so dramatically. And what that story or that sentence is all about is about understanding who you're aligning with. So understanding who you are, and then understanding who are the people that you need to align with to help you get to where you want to go. And it's not about being, I would say, selfish in the saying of only getting what you want. But what I found is, even in sales, right? Like I try to say like, yeah, I'm in sales because I sell my services or whatever. But at the end of the day, I try to offer value. And when I offer value, the sale is so much easier. It's not even a sale anymore. It's just they understand that I'm there, I'm on their side, and I'm with them in this. Like we were going to figure this out together. So I think the one thing I would just have people just evaluate who in your life is a giver, who in your life is a taker, and who in your life is the matcher, and just understand how to work that relationship or avoid that relationship or give to that relationship, whatever that looks like, because that has totally changed my life.
Love that. Michael, tell the audience where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Michael Gabriel. It's really simple. Or you can give me a call directly, 614-907-5510.
Michael, thank you for being on. It was an amazing journey with you. I want to continue. We just had a call the other day. Let's keep that up. Let's keep the energy up. Guys, if you want a good marketing agent, I'll tell you what, he's one of the best in the business. Mach 10, right? Is it still called
Yeah,
Mach 10? Mach
10.
10. Yeah, Mach 10. And everything else you're doing, man. I hope for you a great journey. And I'm going to be watching you. And yeah, man, you're amazing. Guys, I want to thank you for listening today. And I want to see you next week on Unleash Ultimate You. Change your mindset, change your body. Peace.